Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. The Finance Committee meeting is called to order October 4th at 10:32 a.m. My colleague Alderwoman O'Neill cannot make it today, but we have Alderwoman Finlayson here, so we have a quorum. At this point, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll approve or move to approve the agenda as written.
Okay, I guess I can second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next, we have approval of the meeting minutes of September 20th.
Move approval of the minutes from the September 20th meeting.
I'll second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we have one supplemental appropriation. It is SA 7-24 to review. This is, I assume that our finance director, Jody Dickinson, will summarize it for us, if you will.
Yes, Jody Dickinson, Finance Director. This is an appropriation to add to the AIPPC's fund an amount that will allow them to spend the additional fund balance that they have from fiscal year '23. When we established their budget in the spring, we made an estimate of what they would have left over and appropriated that in the budget, but they actually have $107,000 more. So we need to appropriate that so they can spend it this year.
Question?
If I might, so I just want to be clear. This $107,000 is unused funds from their '23 budget.
Yes.
So in order for them to use it in the '24.
Correct.
we
And
have
it
to
is in
appropriate.
addition to what we anticipated they would have left over.
But not new money. This is money that was already
No,
in their
correct,
account. Left
correct.
over. Okay. All right.
May I ask, is this due to the increase in hotel tax? Is that why, that it's funded through that, correct?
So yes, it's all hotel tax funds. Some of the excess would be because we had occupancy taxes, hotel taxes, in excess of what we thought we were going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they would have anticipated they were going to spend things quicker and have less left over in '23, but the plans didn't move as quickly as anticipated. So those are two combination of reasons why we have this amount to add.
So my last question before we make a motion is, are they submitting all of their required financial reports? I know, don't they have to submit financials on how they spend it? No?
So I don't know if there's a special required report for them.
Okay.
The finance department pays all the bills, so I can tell you what they spent it on. In addition, we summarize all the financial transactions for them and provide them a monthly report to show them what's there, what's been spent.
Okay.
So if they have some other reporting requirement on top of that to come to council, that I'm not aware of.
Okay. So it sounds like you do the financials.
We are the keeper of the records of what they're spending.
Okay. Thank you.
But they do have the freedom to spend as they see fit.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'll move a favorable recommendation for SA 724.
Thank you. I'll second that. All in favor of a favorable recommendation signify by saying aye. Aye. All righty. Next, we have the fund transfer. There it is. It's fund transfer 2-24. This is, I think we need we need the director of. Oh, what's your new title with the department? Is it official yet?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So do you have a new title?
Please come to the mic.
Please come, sorry. We have the director of MIT here, the newly named department, to explain this transfer under FT 2-24.
Sure. We have identified and met with a consultant out of California that is their entire business model is to assist municipalities with implementation and ongoing work with permitting and licensing systems with a focus on EnerGov. And we would like to partner with them to provide some assistance with our further refinement and implementation of EnerGov. The funds are available to transfer from salaries and benefits due to turnover from our newly funded in this year's budget analyst position that has yet to be filled. And we haven't even begun interviewing for that position. It still needs to go in front of Civil Service Board. So we've got a few more months of turnover left before the position is filled. So that's what's freeing up the funding to transfer into miscellaneous contractual services.
May I?
Yes, questions? Yeah.
So what happens when you fill that position if you use the funding for that salary?
It's only a fraction of what's allocated to the position, for the entirety of the FY. So we're only tapping into about half of it. So it's looking more and more like we're going to reach 6 months of turnover for that position. So it kind of comes out in the wash.
Okay, so half of the salary will
And
be
benefits
needed
number, correct.
and so you will not fill that position before January.
It's looking less and less likely.
And the contract, EnerGov, is that in coordination with planning and zoning? Or you said permitting. So whose permitting is this program?
EnerGov is the permitting and licensing software system that we went live with in January. And yes, it is in coordination with not only the planning and zoning department, with the assistant city manager who helps us out on that project as well.
In whose department is that the permitting,
Planning and zoning.
planning and zoning?
Along with, EnerGov, the product actually reaches into all of our permitting and licensing. So you've got the city clerk's office with ABCB and other licenses. You've got transportations with things like taxi licenses. You've got public works. So yeah, the software system itself actually kind of has its fingers in several city departments.
Okay, but it's all coordinated out of your office?
Right. We implement and administer the software and pay the bills.
So do those other departments, planning and zoning, public works, city clerk's office, do they have input into the program offerings so that they're sure that it's meeting all of their needs, or how is that coordinated?
Well, this is more, it's entirely technical. They're assisting the IT department. The planning and zoning and the other departments aren't really interfacing with this consultant in the way that we are.
I guess my question is, do the departments have input so that the contractor is meeting the needs that they have for this program?
They would, I'm trying to think how to say this. What we're asking this consultant to do is to assist the IT department in solving technical issues, helping us guide support tickets through EnerGov support, helping build out forms, helping with back-end database support, things that are kind of transparent to the end users within the city. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So the program is already existing. This company is going to come in and help us work out any glitches that might exist.
You got it. Yeah, EnerGov's been live for over 9 months now.
Okay. So, my interest is making sure that the people who use the product have input into their needs for that product. So.
Right. When we've got end user groups put together where we have regular meetings. The assistant city manager has been tremendously helpful in helping us put those together and scheduling and running the meetings and things of that nature. So yeah, the lines of communication are open.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back to my colleague's first question, as far as any sort of exposure to future salaries, when I look at this backup, it looks like we definitely have this money in closing out fiscal year 22 and 23, the way I look at it. Is that correct? I think question is for Director Dickinson. Okay. When I look at the backup of this, it's this account inquiry. It looks like we are taking this money, for lack of a better word, from closing out fiscal year 22 and 23.
For this position?
Yeah.
No, we are transferring budget spending authority from their salary and benefits line
Yep.
down to their contractual services line, because they had enough in their salary and benefits to
Right.
pay for that new position,
Right.
and they haven't filled it yet. So they're going to have some unspent budget money in their salary and benefits line.
Okay.
So we're just transferring it down so they can spend it on a contractor instead of on an employee.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at the backup that looked like that we're in a good position
Yeah,
to do that.
that's a matter of, that's there to analyze what's there, what's available, then we calculate what's
Yeah.
going to be spent, and then make sure they have
Yeah.
enough to transfer.
Okay. Good. All right.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation to FT2. I'm sorry, I'll move a favorable recommendation for FT224.
I will second that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you both.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here. So we have 4 pieces of legislation. What I think we could do, if I'm looking at this correctly, we have an ordinance on the kayak pilot program, and then we have a companion resolution. We might be able to just look at both at the same time. I don't know, I'm sort of.
That would be fine with me.
Yeah. All right, so this is 025-23. I'm sponsoring this with 2 co-sponsors, and the genesis of this was to appease the residents in the historic district, which their only access to the water safely is at the end of Prince George Street, and they need or wanted a place to store their kayaks. And this went through a really big evaluation between Eric Lashinsky, prioritizing locations, and then Beth Bellis. And so what this does is basically set up a pilot, and we don't know the cost. Therefore, we don't know what the permitting fees will be yet, but this sets up the structure to do that. And we have Deputy Director Gild here to add to this as well.
So far as costs, I'm going to help you a little bit with that. So what Beth Bellis did was, I'm sorry, for the record, Jackie Guile, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability. So Harbor Master Beth Bellis looked at what it would cost to purchase a kayak rack, paddleboard rack that would accommodate 20 kayaks or paddleboards. And that's pretty large. That's pretty, accommodate quite a few, and it's going to take up quite a bit of space as well. I don't have the dimensions, but you can envision that. So the cost that she got, the average cost is about $4,500 to purchase that. And then fees were not calculated, because if you did it for just the first year by 20, I'm sorry, I can't do that math in my head, but it was something like, it was pretty expensive. It was like $350 per year, per kayak or paddleboard kept there a year, which seems like a pretty high permit fee, but, and how do we do that? There may be more people that want to keep their kayak there than we have spaces for. Do we do a lottery? There's a lot of things that need to be determined. But as far as purchasing something that large, or 2 of them, it's about $4,500. Then Beth determined that they would need to use one of their seasonal employees to administer the program, collect applications, and provide permits and fees, and maintain the area, help people out if they had locked their kayak in and couldn't get it out. And so that would require an additional seasonal employee or employees because they don't work very many hours. So it's best to look at it from a cost perspective, which is $3,000 for a seasonal. At that point, the staff, because that requires some supervision, those seasonal employees, and that additional one would be maxed out because they're currently stretched pretty thin in all of their duties and the things they do, and adding another seasonal employee in another program would stretch them to their limits. If this program were extended beyond one rack to other areas of the city, then we'd be looking at adding an additional permanent staff person, or at least a part-time permanent staff person.
So we don't know what we don't know. Director Dickinson, do you have anything to add? I mean, that's the objective of this is to set it up, to figure it all out, which is a great start. I mean, I think this is something we have to do, especially with all of the water access issues coming up. So.
Yes, I just wanted to add, and talking about the rack, it's $4,500. If you split it just on the first year, renters, it's going to be expensive, but that's something that we would want to spread over further years. So that's why setting the rate is not clear yet what we would charge, because you'd want to spread that $4,500 cost over future years as well. I'm presuming the rack's going to last longer than a year.
Okay. Question?
Well, I guess my concern, first of all, we're only talking about one location
For now.
for one large rack. And why is that?
I think that's because, well, the resolution talks about a pilot program at a city park location, street and city park A, one singular. So to try out the program and see how it works, work out the kinks, et cetera. There's also questions, Alderwoman, about what happens during city dock construction if we were to do it around the city dock area. We would have to, do we postpone implementing this program? Do we do it now? Do we shut it down for a period? Do we do it at a different park location? Can it be, depending on the park location as well, could we have 20 kayaks in one spot? Can we accommodate that? That's another question. So I don't know if that makes, I think for ease of administration, they thought one location, I believe, was the intent.
It seems excessive in a sense that we're talking about a 20 kayak rack for a pilot program when we know that there's a need because we heard the residents speak to it at our meeting, but we seem to be taking it to the extreme, and maybe that's because you want to get, the most money for whatever it's going to be. It sounds like there's already an interest in a specific place. And so was that open for other considerations? I'm not clear, and I understand what pilot is supposed to be for. But I'm just concerned that we're creating something that's larger than we need, first of all. And second of all, and thank you that my legislation passed last week, we already know that this is going to impact staff. This sounds like really almost another job for another employee, or at least in part, because now we're taking them from their normal locations, I believe, and they're having to work out of another location, at least in part. So I think we can come up with some numbers, at least some projections. I'm very uncomfortable saying, okay, but we don't know how much it's going to cost. I mean, we know how much the biggest rack is going to cost.
Yeah.
But, we can look at what other kayak rental facilities cost and use them as a model, I would think. So we can at least come up with some ballpark number.
So if you look at the fiscal note, it does have the 4,500 there, and it also shows that for the pilot program, we're projecting about 3,000 more in staff costs. So that's there, it's just, that's just the
reading
pilot, okay.
But the part that's missing is revenue. So what kind of revenue should we expect? Could we expect? Might we expect? I mean, there are other kayak rentals all around our area, maybe not in the city, of course, but in other areas, on the South River, on the Magathie River.
Yeah.
So what do they charge? I mean, surely we can come up with a ballpark figure so we have some idea.
So as in any permitting process, the goal would be to recoup the cost
Right.
of this
Right.
in the fees. And what we were saying is, if we just do a pilot and we take the initial investment cost of the rack and spread it just to a year's worth at one park, it's going to be a very high fee. Did you say $350? $350 per, no, we didn't calculate that.
So with
for
that-
this first year for the pilot. So then the question is, would we want to, the first year during the pilot, is try to recoup 100% of the cost of the investment, or see if it works, set a lower fee, and then in the future, if we move forward with it, try to set the fee to recoup the 100% of the investment that we've made.
I am good with whatever fee you set based on your research, but I do want to see a fee, a possible fee. It doesn't have to be carved in stone, but we should have some idea of the revenue that can be generated by this kayak rack. And
Are you saying you would want it before you do this part of it? Because the resolution, I believe, states the intent that the city manager will come up with a fee for a pilot program.
Right.
So it's just that we haven't set it yet. When we calculated it, it was kind of high for the pilot program. Okay.
If we did this total cost of $7,500, which is $4,500 for the rack plus $3,000 for a seasonal employee, and you divide that by 20 spots, that's $375. If we just look at the rack, the $4,500 rack, it's $225.
for what period of time?
For it'll be a year,
For a year?
yeah. And then, as you point out, the rack lasts beyond 1 year, as a life expectancy around, 15 years on something like
Then
that.
I'm not clear why those numbers wouldn't be in the, maybe it's in the resolution. I haven't.
No,
So the question would be whether we make this pay for itself the first year, or we spread the cost out over a period, which then the cost will increase a bit because you're paying seasonal employees as well every year.
Either way, as long as there is a number here that we can look at with an expectation.
Okay. As Ms. Dickinson has pointed out, the resolution says that the city manager's office will set a fee, but this, you may be choosing to amend this to say that a fee must be included in this legislation.
Well, I think we should.
well, that's what I, sort of said, we don't know what we don't know, and I don't, you're correct, there's no numbers here, but it is a chicken and egg thing. I get that. I get that, and it's a chicken and egg thing where we don't know what it costs until we buy this and we know how many permits, et cetera. But I think, I don't want to stop this initiative, if you will, but I think we could suggest that, because we're not approving numbers in recommending this today. There's no numbers here that we're approving. We're approving the initiation of this pilot, but I think we want to add, I'm not sure how, that we would want the fee to offset the costs. That's all. We want the fee to offset the costs.
Well,
In the evaluation. I mean, why 20? Why is it so big? Can we trust that the city manager look at this so that, that's what our fees are for. They recoup our costs. And initially, it is sort of upfront loading in the sense that you've got a lot of stuff and then for one rack. And if we have more than one, then it's less. Maybe it's a chicken and egg thing.
Well, I don't think it's a chicken and egg for me.
what number are
But
we
we
looking
already, the code says that our fees have to pay for themselves.
Right. Right,
So that's a given.
right.
Um,
Okay.
But, you know, there are variables that have just been described. It's a multi-year, it's a pilot, so it may only be a 1 year. And so do we want to recoup the funds in the first year because it might not last for a second or third or a fourth year? Or do we want to assume that that pilot is going to turn into an actual program and last, and then we'll be able to recoup our funds? That's a discussion that should be had either in the finance department or in the finance committee. But that decision should be made as to how we recoup those funds. I'm not wedded to, I just want to make sure that we can see, and I don't want to leave it to the city manager to figure it out. I think it's only fair that we have some numbers for expected revenue in the code. If we're going to put this pilot in the code and we have a $7,500 expense, I want to see where that's going to come from. Now, if we want to take that money out of a contingency account, which I don't think we can do because it's a fee, I don't know, but we should have some numbers for revenue. That's all I'm saying.
And the legislation does not specify the size of the rack or how many craft it has to accommodate. So Beth Bell has provided that number just to give you an idea. If we went large to accommodate 20, what it would cost. Obviously, it's up to the city manager's office and the harbor master's office to determine what will best fit and at what location it should be placed at. In the staff report, the harbor master does state her opinions about where it might be located, not exactly specific location, but safety and other considerations to look at in locating the pilot rack.
Does this legislation initiate that discussion? I mean, that's what this does. It just initiates that evaluation. So can we ask that they come before us when they have that framework? And, you know,
Madam Chair, we can amend this legislation to require that a true
write this down.
that a true expenditure or a true expectation of revenue be included. I mean, we need to do that now, I think. But Ms. Dickinson has wanted to speak, so.
Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify, as you're amending language, that language you suggested probably belongs in the resolution. The ordinance is just waiving some restrictions in the code as far as what can be placed there. The resolution is where it talks about the city manager establishing a program and a fee, et cetera, et cetera. So that language would go in the resolution.
Okay, good point. R47-23. And that, you know, it's a resolution which addresses the potential revenue. So yeah, I think that's
I
really
think I'm
have to do
looking
that.
at the fiscal impact note, which is the exact same.
They're the same for both.
Ordinance and resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that doesn't give us any more information than we already have. Do you understand what I'm looking for, Ms. Dickinson? Is there a way that we could amend these two pieces of legislation that would include the expectation of revenue generated?
Yes, and I would suggest you only need an amendment to the resolution language to specify what your expectations are. In there, it talks about the city manager establishing a program.
Correct.
The city manager doing that would involve harbor master and would involve the Office of Finance to determine if we have the right amount of fees. But you can specify any directives there in the resolution.
I think we'd like to add that language over the
Yeah.
timeframe.
Well, before,
Can we do it on the floor
we should do it here in the Finance Committee, I think,
today?
would be appropriate.
Is this a finance committee amendment?
Yeah,
It's a Finance Committee amendment.
yes.
And I like what you said, but I just wanted to add about the time frame. You know, is it over a year or over?
Well, we don't know what the time frame. I don't know, does it say it's a year pilot? Does it say?
It does not. I mean, much of it is left to the city manager's office to create a pilot program and then to work with the harbor master's office to promulgate the rules and specifications, and then also for the city to establish the maintenance responsibilities, permitting process, regulations on storage duration, and associated fees.
Okay, so I think we could add something like item number 4. I'm looking at the resolution that prior execution of this program, that we have a financial evaluation of ensuring that the fee covers the costs. You don't have to help me with that.
I'm looking at the resolution also,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure whether it would go in one of the whereas clauses, whereas the expectation is that the program would generate
Yeah.
the revenue that would sustain itself,
Yeah.
or something to that effect. I just want to see where we know what the expenses are, potentially. I want to see where the revenue is. I think we should always do that, you know.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to recommend this legislation. I don't want to pay a cost
Well-
without making sure that the revenue's coming in, so,
Could we postpone it then until we figure out how and where to add the information that I'm seeking? This isn't, well, is this time sensitive?
or do we need to do this to have that study? I mean, this is sort of like enabling legislation. It's enabling legislation.
No, I don't think it's enabling legislation. We're simply asking for information about this proposed project. It doesn't enable us to do anything. I mean, the legislation lets us develop the program.
Right.
But what I'm asking for is how much, what would the projected revenue be if this project moves forward?
Can you do that without us moving on this legislation is my dilemma. I mean, what I meant by enabling legislation, it tells, it authorizes them to move with this pilot and then develop the costs. So
So
I don't want to stop that process.
in that process, you can add requirements. You can add requirements to the resolution saying that before it's implemented, you would want a presentation, or that you want to see certain things
Yeah.
before it moves forward.
Yeah.
So you could put that in the resolution.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly the right place. That would be an Office of Law decision.
Yeah, agreeing with my colleague, but at the same time, not wanting to stop the process. I think that's a very good suggestion, Director Dickinson, that we simply amend the resolution to say, before this pilot program is implemented, we would like to see a fiscal analysis of the program. There's no fiscal analysis
Of the revenue.
of the
to be-
revenue,
Potential revenue.
of the potential revenue. That's, then we're not the bad guys stopping the whole thing,
Well, we wouldn't stop it if we delayed action on it.
but they won't work on it until they get this legislation. This legislation is enabling legislation.
Well,
It tells them
that's
to go
true.
move forward. That's all. So the compromise is, okay, go and study it. Don't do any implementation. Don't even buy that rack until we know the projected revenue. That's what we want to say.
This is what you can do. If you recommend it favorably here, it's going to council Monday. So you present your amendment on the floor.
I wouldn't recommend it today.
You wouldn't recommend it today?
No.
So you want to
But then we'll never get the numbers. I don't think
Well-
that, by not recommending this, then it's stopped.
It's not stopped. It goes to the full council on Monday without a recommendation from the finance
So
committee.
no action is what you're saying.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to be productive and make sure that
It's
we,
not being
get that.
unproductive, but I believe that we deserve to have an idea of what revenue this will generate.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that I understand we're not going to get that until
I'm sorry,
they
and I don't.
move on. Here's my question. I'll simplify it. Do you need this legislation to provide us with what my colleague is asking for? Do you need this legislation to give us a revenue stream?
No, based on the, the information in the fiscal note, we can make a determination of what we're going to charge. Are we going to do it all, recoup it all in 1 year? There will be additional fees. Of course, we have seasonal employees. They'll have to help with administering the program. So that's a continuing expense apart from the one-time purchase of the kayak rack. So we have to factor that in as well if we are going to spread the costs over the life of the kayak rack or the life of the program. So we have to just make that decision internally. We can do that and provide what we think we should be charging for a fee, or you can move forward with a resolution which says move ahead, determine what you're going to charge, and then, but it doesn't seem that you want to know first what the fees are.
I don't think, and I'm not in the finance department, so forgive me. I don't think what I'm asking for is going to take extensive research. I mean, it will take some research. But all I'm asking is, what's the going rate for a kayak rental? What kind of revenue can we expect to generate from this kayak storage facility? Okay? Are we going to be able to generate $7,500 if we charge everybody the full freight the first year? In my mind, and this is not the finance background, this is, whatever. We can come up with, worst case scenario, we charge everybody $350 a year and we cover the full cost of the rack, the employee, and then we have all the other employee costs that we have to consider. We have police, we have public works. I think we have planning. Anyway, so there are some other considerations. I know the finance department figures those calculations in when we do, or the city manager's office.
Most of the time, those determinations on what something's going to cost is done by the program delivering department. They would do the research, what does a kayak rack cost? What if we get a smaller rack? What would the fee be? That kind of thing. Those kind of assessments we usually get from the program delivery, and then we add any information we need to if we think there's something missing as far as salaries, et cetera.
So is that something that's going to take months, weeks, days, hours? I mean,
Yeah, I, as you can tell, I'm trying to make this work, but it's not fair to have this before us without any numbers. And what concerned me from the get-go is why, knowing this neighborhood and knowing, I do know at the request, we heard the testimony, why 20? Where did that come from? Why 20?
No one is held to 20. That just Beth came up with that
Right,
notice
and
to
so
show
then-
you, if you were to max it out, which they think is the largest they could possibly put down there, 20.
Yeah, okay,
20
that was just
space
hypothetical,
rack.
right.
Yeah, so if we have that, the cost of the rack obviously would come down quite a bit.
Right,
And then we
Yeah,
still
let's-
have employee expenses associated with it.
right.
So no one was wed to that number, it was just as a demonstration. So if you want us to come back with the harbor master and city manager's office can talk about what we think, how we should be covering this, whether in the first year or spread the costs and come up with a figure, and what is a reasonable size of a rack.
Right.
This legislation also does not specify a location. I know that a lot of people
I know.
showed up from this particular area, but there are concerns about that as well.
we postpone it.
What we're saying here is that a pilot should be studied we should have a studied pilot so that in the first year, the costs are offset. I mean, I'm thinking some of these residents may pay what we need to offset that cost. I don't think we can take action on this, but I'm still stuck on, well, I don't want to stop the evaluation. Can we postpone it until you come back to us with that information? That's what, yeah.
That's our decision to make. But what I'm asking, and you can simply say, best case scenario, worst case scenario. Best case scenario, we get 20 racks, it costs $7,500 plus the cost of other employees, and this is what revenue will generate. Worst case scenario, we only need 6 racks. This could, but give us some range of what our expectation can be. That's all. I'm not trying to get you to do it, but this should have been in the legislation to begin with. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not, right, that's what I meant by
You know.
it's not really
So,
fair to put us in this position.
If we take no action today or postpone action, then it'll come back to us at the next finance committee meeting. And then it'll be on the agenda for the next, not this council meeting, but the next council meeting.
Let me make sure.
Well, you know, it's not gonna happen till,
Yes, it'll be on October 23rd.
Right.
yeah, we're
So
in.
we're not killing it.
It's still within the month.
Yeah.
It'll all still be.
Yeah, and
resolved
this
before
is like
November.
next season, right?
Yes.
We're in October.
Yes, October.
Yeah, I think what concerned me was when I started seeing these numbers and it's like, whoa, wait, 20, and then the staff costs, so I don't know about you, but I'd like it to offset just the 1 year. You know, why do we have to invest in it, right?
Well, that's true. It
yeah.
may, you
right.
know, but we just need some
Okay.
parameters is what I'm saying. So we need a motion to
I will
postpone.
accept a motion to postpone.
I'll move postponement of R47 as well as O25.
Yeah, we need more info. Okay,
Yes.
And to your question, Alderman Finlayson, it's not a heavy lift. It's something that we can do in a few hours. It's not a heavy lift. It's something we can
okay.
do in a few hours, so we can have it ready the
Okay.
next time. Mhm.
Well, that's good. I wasn't trying to give you a heavy lift. I didn't think
No.
it would be, but, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'm not used to looking at resolutions without numbers, so good. Okay, great. Second, I second that. All in favor of the postponement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, R46-23 is the Tucker Street Boat Trailer Permit Non-Residential Fee Increase. I think this is our colleagues. Yeah, this is Alderwoman O'Neill's resolution. It looks pretty straightforward. It's clearly an increase of the non-resident fee. Can anyone speak to the genesis of this? Again, is this to offset costs? Anyone here?
I think I recall during the budget process, we heard some concerns about non-residents using the launch and parking on the street and so a way to discourage non-residents, I think, was the
Yeah.
genesis. I'm
I know, you hate to use the word
not
deterrent,
positive, but
yeah. Or again, capture the costs of additional enforcement or whatever is required because of that mess. Okay. Well, we always like an increase in fee.
well, and the sponsor is, it's in her ward, so
Yeah.
I would make a motion to give a favorable
I would
recommendation for R46.
Yeah, I'll second that favorable recommendation for R46-23. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that will come before council. The next and the last piece of legislation is the Military Bowl and a waiver. Why do we have to do this every year if it's a major city event? You know, when we, oh, okay. Okay,
Somebody outside the city is doing an event, we're waiving fees on their behalf, so we have to go through the motion of waiving the fees.
May I ask,
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Ms. Dickinson, do you have a record of how many fees we've waived this year? There've been
No, I know they were accumulating that data for I don't know if it was for this purpose, but for a broader purpose, to see how much we're waiving, but the assistant city manager has been leading that up.
Okay. Do we have a fund into which we're tapping whenever we
No.
waive fees?
No, this would just, it reduces the amount of revenue that would flow into the general fund from these fees. Because when we permit, or when we have police presence, or some other assistance to an event, there's cost involved. And normally we try to recoup it through the fee process. So we're absorbing that cost and not getting recouped for it. And sometimes it involves some overtime as well. So it's not something that would normally be estimated when they're putting their budget together. But this resolution is just up to $15,000 and is consistent with the previous years. So we did it last year, so it would make it a level waiver from last year.
This is important. Okay, so on page 2 of, I'm pointing to page 2 of the resolution, on these fee waivers, we're always the expectation that the hotel tax, people coming to the city, but it does look like we have data here that says that the Military Bowl in 2019 led to 18 million, in direct business sales, supported 8,820 local jobs, and contributed over $1 million in local taxes. Doesn't say
That's not just to Annapolis, though.
No, that's overall, so I assume we get some of that.
So I think the summary is that they make I hate to say considerable, but maybe it is a considerable impact on our revenue in our hotels and restaurants and all kinds of other, economic indicators.
Yeah, so the optics shouldn't look like we're really giving away money. We do get it in a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation to R 5023.
I'll second that. All in favor for a favorable recommendation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that will come before council Monday night. Is that it? That's it for legislation? All right.
May I ask Ms. Dickinson a question before,
Well, she has her update now, so.
I know, I was going to say before her update.
Oh, before her update, okay. I have to sign.
Is there a way to track increases in hotel taxes, the revenue that we get from the state by virtue of tourism, like hotel tax? I don't know what others there may be. I mean, we get an increase, like the increase that AAIPPC got, that we dealt with today. That was because.
Well, we gave them a part of our money, so that was money coming to us.
That was our money? I thought that was part of.
No, we carved out a piece of our revenue and dedicated it to AIPPC.
Do we track the increase from the state?
So we collect that tax ourselves. Those dollars for the occupancy tax come right to us, or they're supposed to come right to us. And we collect those over the course of a quarter, and then we look at the total we've collected once everybody files their reports. And then we take that pot of money, we divide it up. We have to give 17% to the visitor center. We give 3% to the Anne Arundel County Arts Council. We now have to give 3% to AIPPC, and we give 3% to the Housing Trust Fund. So we now give, 26% of the money that we bring in has to go to other entities to do their work. So, and that's money we're collecting. So I can tell you how much we've increased the collections over time and whether they've increased or decreased. When we started using our online host compliance, they did a lot of legwork on notifying people that were renting that they had to pay these taxes, and we saw some increase when we did that too. So I can tell you those. What is more difficult is some of the benefit that the businesses get, we don't see. For instance, if a restaurant serves a lot more people and they have more sales taxes, that goes to the state and we don't get a piece of that. Those kind of amounts can be determined, but it's more difficult. And I think that the economic development staff follows that more closely as far as these types of events and what benefit they do to the city in general, whether or not we see that. Any revenue we're getting, I can measure for you, but those indirect advantages to our local businesses, I can't measure that immediately. We have to do research, and I know that economic development does some research as far as those events are concerned.
So since we do all of the collecting for the hotel tax, can we track by quarter or month increases or decreases?
Yes,
So
we already have that data.
So we can tell what impact the military bowl has.
So the Military Bowl is like a 2-day event within a quarter, and when we get these receipts, we don't get them by day, we get them by month. So it would be everybody that's renting their home on a short-term rental permit gives us their total revenue for December. And that's in there somewhere. I mean, because we don't get it, like, I don't know if we'd have access to it or not, like it was this day, it was this day, it was this day. That's not readily available.
Okay, but we could see, and I shouldn't say but, we can see, for example, that the month of December may have a big jump. Because, but I mean, granted, we have other things going on.
Right.
also.
Yes, we can measure that. Right now, we're accumulating by quarter, so we don't necessarily say
So-
October, November, December.
Right,
But we do have that data.
okay.
So to understand this, I know you're asked this 1,000 times. The hotel tax, we have a memo of understanding with the county that we collect it, and it's within the county limits. All of the hotel tax are within the city limits.
So the initial, the state authorized, it goes like this, the state authorized the county to develop a program. The county developed a program. We have a memorandum of understanding with the county that the city will collect all of those taxes for rentals that are within the city of
In the
Annapolis.
city limits, got it. Okay,
Right, and the county does their own program for everything else.
got it. And so then that's why we get the 70, what is it, 74%?
Well, we get 100%, and then we
we divvy
pass
it
out 26% of it
26
to
goes
other organizations.
What was the 17% for?
The visitor center.
Oh, right.
And that's, all of these allocations are set forth in state law.
Yeah, no, I know.
The 17%, the Arts Council, the AIPPC went to the state to get the money, and then the Housing Trust
Yeah,
as
we
well.
remember that, and then Alderman Gay got the housing fund, is all good, yeah, so, okay. The good news is the fee is increased, I understand it, the county increased.
So the county's program increased the rate from 7% of your nightly cost to 8%. So that's going to give a bit of a bump, and that went into effect on July 1st. So we should see a little bit of an increase there.
Okay, well, maybe, do you want to ask for a quarterly report on it coming in or something?
I mean, it would be
Prudent.
beneficial just for information. But I think it helps us to justify waiving the fees, for example, all of these events, when we see that our hotel taxes are increasing,
Right,
our revenues increasing, not the tax.
yeah.
Maybe I'm making
And no, I'm just trying to think of a good way to tell you what the Military Bowl does. And I was thinking during COVID, did we have a year where there was no Military Bowl?
Oh, good point, yeah.
That you might compare December against December to see what the impact that was on those taxes. But like I say, I can't pinpoint those days of the week specifically.
I mean, December is hard. I mean, we have all the Midnight Madness
that's
3 or
right.
4 days during the month.
Yeah, how much does that bring in
Right.
in hotel taxes? Because those people, do they actually stay overnight in Annapolis intentionally to come to Midnight Madness?
Right, and there's New Year's, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all muddled in.
So we can sort the transactions by month, by year, and see if we see a difference
It'd be
there.
great, oh, now the nerd in me, but it'd be great to see a graph, you know, of, whoa, it really jumps up in December, or it dies in February, whatever, so we're cautious about waiving a fee in February or something.
And then again, it's possible that economic development might have
They might
measured this in another way.
This would be helpful with are we getting quarterly reports, financial reports? I know you give us an update at every meeting, but we used to get an actual quarterly report. And I think that would be very beneficial.
So it depends on what you're talking about when you say a quarterly report. We still,
Financial report.
well, a financial report, but we do produce a quarterly expenditure report that shows you how each department is doing according to their budget.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're talking about expenses or revenues or what quarterly report you're referring to.
I think the initial,
We get the
how do we
tracking.
get that though? I haven't
Through
seen it.
emails. We send it out through email when the budget office, when the budget staff prepare that.
I think it would be beneficial if it was presented here at the Finance Committee meeting.
It's buried in people's inboxes
Yeah,
sometimes.
and the
It is,
community has no idea.
but it is a
some of
good,
us don't.
it is a good tracking tool that she does.
Yeah.
It just basically tells how we're tracking each quarter.
But I just think I mean, you don't have to elaborate, but just to.
Well, we might want to then try to summarize points and bullet points and stuff for presentation, because it's a multiple page report and it crosses all funds, so it's got a lot of information on it. And I think it would be, we'd have to figure out a way to summarize it for its best effect at a finance committee meeting.
Well, it is pretty, I mean, you look at it and you can see by department that how they're tracking, and is it that many pages? I guess.
12 pages,
Oh, yeah.
because it has all the funds on it,
Yeah.
not just the general fund and the departments, it has all the different funds that we have and how they're tracking.
I don't know, you don't have to condense it. I mean, we could just have a meeting where you, introduce yourself, come to the
Yeah.
mic.
Yeah. I just think it would be helpful to just highlight anomalies, you know.
Sorry, I'm a little sick. Capri Turner, budget analyst. So right now, I know that we send them out via email, but starting FY24 quarter one will be sent out as an email, but quarter two, we're going to implement using our OpenGov software for our end users, and it's a public facing front that at any time you could go in there and that information will be there automatically.
Well, that would be beneficial. However, I still think it needs to be presented during a Finance Committee meeting so that the community will be reminded, as well as we will be reminded
Okay.
of where it is. And maybe the first time it's presented, you can walk us through how to find it. So the community, you know, I have OpenGov on my iPad. I don't
All right.
know whether everybody does.
So, I mean, we could do that. We're, like I say, we'll have to come up with a way that we think effectively summarizes it, so we don't have to flip through 12 pages of this, see that. So we'll think, I'll go back to
Yeah.
Katie and Capri, and we'll come up with a
Just
plan for
the
that.
highlights, you know. or
And that's just
significant
expenses.
changes.
So the reason I was asking is you were talking a lot about the revenues, but that's not going to tell you anything about what revenues are coming in. So
Right.
that's a different issue.
This is more of a, I keep calling it a tracking tool to see what. And it's
How
good for the
departments are
public to
spending.
know that, the departments estimate well, we're not overestimating in our budget. At least that's what I see. It's like, wow, this is really tracking just like
revenues on there,
it's estimated. But then, like Alderwoman Layson said, there's some, you look at it and say, oh no, it's only the second quarter and they've spent 90% of their money, we've got a problem. So that's the stuff
what the
we
things
want
that when we
highlighted.
put it out there, it's
Yeah.
not only you're
want that
seeing it, but
report.
we're analyzing it too, and contacting the departments and saying,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah.
You're outpacing your budget for the year, what's going on?
I think that would be really prudent. So thank you for that suggestion, because you guys put a lot of work into that,
Mm-hmm.
know?
All right?
All right, thank you. Next.
Thanks, hope you feel better. Any update?
Only that,
Oh, the
you know, our
bonds.
main focus in the office right now is the FY '23 financial statements and getting those pulled together. It's a lot of work. We've got many people working on it. I am going to list the senior accountant position that I have for, as we talked about, for accounts receivable monitoring, and see what kind of candidates we get there, and hopefully find somebody to bring in-house, and then I'll have to figure out where to put them, where to put their body. And
I don't know where, if you were here when I said they could use, we didn't want lack of space to deter her from hiring, so I was going to give up my chair.
You don't have the authority to give up your chair in the office.
so that's, yeah, so there's
No, I mean, the
7 others that may,
council.
yeah, so that's very generous, and we'd consider that that we thought that whole space would be able to be given up. The issue now is that on a temporary basis, I either have to break up my office into different spaces, that's one of the things we're looking into, or placing some people off-site, which I really don't want to do. That's not, I'd rather have the team working together in close quarters than to have somebody located at another building somewhere. We already have our purchasing staff across the street, and that kind of divides them from the team as well, a little bit of physical division, so.
What's going on across the street? Is that going to be offices at the house? The
Oh, the Maynard Burgess house?
Burgess house, yeah.
I don't know, it's not set up for office space, it's set up for more like a small meeting space or something. I haven't gone in the building to look at it.
Did, any bond status? Did we go to
So the bond ordinance passed.
Yeah.
And so the departments are free to spend their bond dollars, but right now we have a lot of bond dollars in a pool that are not spent, so I don't know that we're going to be issuing any new long-term debt this year. We'll decide that before November. We'll decide what we need for the year. So I don't anticipate that we will be issuing more long-term debt in this fiscal year. And that's
good.
that's pretty much everything that's going on, besides, you know, ongoing monitoring of the budget, and I've got union negotiations are gonna start up pretty soon, so we're trying to prepare for that.
Yeah. All right, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
We're good. All right, well, that concludes our agenda, so I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Seems so
All right, thank
quiet.